You know that positive feeling when you visit a new place and not too long after you're absolutely sure that you definitely want to visit this place again. I'm sure if you think back, you can think of quite a few locations like that. Well, this place, a small city in Sweden called Trosa in Sörmland on the east coast of Sweden, is actually one of those places, and this weekend I got to go back in good company to see this location again for the first time in a few years. And the really special thing about Trosa, this city, is that it's kind of going back with a time machine and seeing things that the way they might have been back in maybe the 50s or whatnot. It's the old buildings here, the wooden buildings, the beautiful setting, and the fact that there's a river or a creek or other going through the center of the city out to the harbor. And as it's relatively narrow, you get a really close connection to the buildings and the people that are walking around you on either side. And with the boats and the buildings, the people and the greenery, it's really quite a nice location. So this weekend, just a few days ago, I had the opportunity to go back here with good company, as I said, as I was, I had the privilege to lead a group of sea kayakers together with two other leaders, Stina and Bengt. I went on a weekend trip organized through Friluftsfrämjandet Norrviken, which is a local association of the Swedish Outdoor Association, out into the archipelago southeast of Trosa, which is the city here. So we had spent a day and a half out in the archipelago in quite a bit of wind every now and then, but we had a beautiful paddle out on seawater. We had a beautiful camping location at a large sandy beach on a long island. And then to top the trip off, we ended with a nice paddle here on the creek in Trosa, which for most everybody was a new experience and a definite contrast to the seawater experiences that we had earlier. And that was kind of the point of this trip. And for me, being the organizing leader for this trip, or the main organizing leader, there were three of us, as we were planning this, I definitely knew, even coming up with the idea of this location, that I wanted to, if possible, include this in the trip, because it's just one of the best small city locations I've seen in terms of this kind of really charming feeling in the city, paddling in the middle of it, because of this river and the buildings and such. If you happen to be in Sweden and you know of similar cities that have kind of a feel like this, I would very much appreciate tips on other places I should visit or others should visit, which are similar to this, because I haven't found something that's quite got this kind of charm. But anyway, this was then part of the trip, and as a reward for us, after some more windy paddles, we went into the city and explored this, and it was definitely worth it. I had been here, as I had mentioned a few years ago, with a friend, Jan, who then showed me around the archipelago here, and we went paddling in the city, and I definitely remember that as one of the paddling highlights for the year, because it's got this particular feel to it. So here, I thought I'd show this footage of what this looks like, maybe to inspire this kind of paddling for others. Because when you're a sea kayaker, you don't always go into locations like this, obviously. Some sea kayakers are connected to paddling clubs, kayak clubs, that are located inside a city like Stockholm, and then of course they get to explore the city waters naturally, because that's where the kayaks are. But depending on where you're starting, and especially if you're a paddler not connected to a club, normally these kind of activities will be organized in the archipelago, and you might find some really nice cottages and houses and such out on islands in the archipelago, and that has a wonderful feel to it. But a few places like this offer some really nice river or paddling experiences that can also provide a really good experience for sea kayakers as well. So here in Trosa, Sweden, we had a really good time, and I'll be sharing more footage as well from this trip in the archipelago later on in other videos. We had a really good group. We had 9 participants and 3 sea kayak leaders from Friluftsfrämjandet Norrviken. And since our group consisted of quite qualified kayakers that were able to handle some wind and waves, that was quite helpful because very strong or fairly strong southerly winds, but I would say very strong during the night especially. It was all continuing coming up from the south for several days, meaning that in the more outer areas that we had possibly considered to paddle to, it wouldn't have been a good idea because the open passages there simply would have too much built up water, too much waves to really safely make longer passages that would have been needed. But we still got to paddle across a bit of waves during our trip and work, especially during the day before. The second day was calmer, and then this was a nice variety to the paddle. And that's something I encourage if you are a paddler and you paddle in different locations, in different styles. If you're a sea kayaker especially, it's always nice to mix things up and paddle in different environments that you're used to. That's why actually I have my project, my personal project called Paddling in 100 Cities, which is a good driving force for me to get out to new places, to new locations that I haven't seen before. And I base that around cities because often that's helpful for me as I go by train or by cruise ferry or plane or whatever. So I go to a new city and I paddle in a river in the city or lakes or whatever locations are nearby. And sometimes, of course, that means I paddle between cities. I end up on seawater or in nature, on lakes or rivers or whatever. But it often gives me quite a bit of an overview of what different cities look like as well from the water. And sometimes that can be a really special feeling if you're in a kayak or on a stand-up paddleboard or packraft or whatever it is, because you have your own perspective and you can create your own experience. And seeing different locations from the water can be very different from the experience of seeing them from land. So that's what we did here. We had a really good trip. It was good fun. And for much of the trip, we actually, despite all the wind, we managed to have some good weather and really enjoyable conditions. And with the friendly ambience of the group and with the qualified kayak leaders alongside me, I had a blast. I know that many of our participants, or hopefully all of our participants, had a good time. So I'd like to thank the group that were with us on this day, and I'll be sharing more footage from this trip because it was really a good and enjoyable one. And if you haven't actually gotten into kayaking or paddling yet and are just watching this out of an interest for the city or for the outdoors, I really recommend it. Even in this location and nearby locations, you can rent kayaks or stand-up paddleboards and just try out paddling. Just do that safely in weather conditions that are appropriate and don't go out beyond your capacity. Always wear a PFD, of course, and check up on safety instructions online and through the rental place if that's what you're using, etc. But anyway, if you are a paddler, I highly recommend mixing it up and trying out different kinds of experiences. City paddling, sea kayaking, rivers, creek paddling, lakes, and maybe even whitewater or whatnot. There's so much to explore as a paddler. So this was a great trip. Thanks again everybody who participated, and I will be sharing more footage going forward in other videos. Thank you for watching, and happy paddles, and have a great continued season.